Hi guys, welcome back again. This time along with tricks, I've brought a couple of changes in the channel. First one is that I've changed the channel name to my name. Hope you aren't confused with that. And the second one is that I'll be making videos in English from now on. Because a bunch of people have been asking me since many days to start making videos in English. And I have felt that many of you will be able to understand English as well. Alright guys, so proceeding with the questions. This time I've picked 3 questions from physics and again from Eamcet paper. So the first question is asking us to find the voltage across AB, which indirectly means to find the voltage across 10 ohm resistor, isn't it? So if you've been watching my tricks video since beginning, now it's time for you to pause and really think about it. Look, if you are not going to pause the video and continue watching, what actually you are doing is you are training the memory muscle, isn't it? You are just remembering the question and the trick that I have explained for that particular question. That isn't really going to help you. Because what would you do if a question comes up from a chapter which hasn't been picked by me in any of my tricks videos? Then you'd perhaps get stuck, isn't it? So the real solution is that not to train your memory muscle, but to train your idea muscle, which implies that you need to teach your brain not what to think, but how to think, isn't it? To do that, just see the core trick that I am applying and just try to apply the same core trick again for a different chapter and a different question. For instance, let me solve this question for you. So what all we have been doing to solve a complex question is that we have been breaking it into simpler pieces, isn't it? So that breakage of a complex problem into a simpler one is the real trick here. If you have that in mind, then you'll obviously know what to think, isn't it? So if there weren't this 3-volt battery sitting here, then the problem would have been much simpler, isn't it? So I'll just ignore this branch, that is this part of the circuit, just to simplify our problem, and then find the voltage across 10 ohm resistor, that is the resistor across which we were asked to find the voltage. Then obviously we won't get the answer because that isn't the actual question asked. But based on the answer that we get, we'll be able to predict if the actual answer is going to be lesser or greater than the virtual answer. So first let us find the voltage across AB. As it is quite simple now, just find the current flowing through this circuit, that is phi is equal to 20 into I, 20 is the total resistance and I comes out to be 1 by 4, that is 0.25. As the current remains same for every resistor in series, we'll be using this current to find out the voltage across required 10 ohm resistance. So voltage is equal to I into R, and then as I is 0.25 and R is 10, voltage comes out to be 2.5. As we know, this isn't the actual answer. This is just answer for the case which we have presumed. Actual answer must be something greater than 2.5. So how will you know if it's greater or lesser than 2.5? One could use the conceptual knowledge that he or she has to get further from that point. So let's try to see what actually is happening in the circuit now. When our circuit is turned on, what actually the positive terminal of the battery here is going to do is, it attracts the electrons present in this wire towards it. As it is causing the movement of electrons, which is current starts to flow in the circuit. So this current flow in the circuit is directly proportional to the rate with which electrons are moving, isn't it? That is what is the current, right? So what actually do you think affects the rate? Isn't that the power of the terminal to pull electrons towards it? Of course, isn't it? If the terminal is more powerful, the rate at which electrons flow towards it will be more, and if it's less, it will be lesser. So based on this, now analyze what actually is going to happen when you put this 10 ohm and 3 volt combination back into the place. So what this combination does is, helps in increasing the rate at which electrons are flowing through this 10 ohm resistance, because this combination is joined across 10 ohm resistance, isn't it? Alright, why actually is this happening is that initially there was only a single source, that is 5 volt, which was attracting the electrons. But now as we have added this 3 volt battery, it increases the rate with which electrons are flowing through this 10 ohm resistance. One thing that we must notice here is that this 3 volt might not be able to pull the electrons with the same power with which it would have done without this 10 ohm resistor. Because what this 10 ohm resistor does is, it decreases the power with which this 3 volt battery is attracting. Because resistor is something which opposes the flow of electrons, isn't it? So it decreases the rate with which this 3 volt here is attracting. But the net effect is still attraction. So the current flowing through this 10 ohm must also increase, which implies that voltage must increase, which further means that it must be greater than 2.5. 2.5 is the case for which we have calculated without taking 3 volt and 10 ohm into consideration. So it must be greater than 2.5. First option is quite funny, it's less than 1. Second option, let's put it aside. Third one is 3 by 2, that's 1.5. And the fourth one is 2 by 3, that's 0.6. So the only option here that's greater than 2.5 is second one, that is coming around 2.6, isn't it? So 2.6 is the correct answer here. So this question here says that there's a toroidal coil and inner radius of the toroidal coil is A and outer radius is B. Then we are asked to find the self-inductance of the coil. As I have said in my earlier videos, if you have studied the important formulas from every chapter, then I'll show you how you could solve this problem with simple idea. Alright, the basic formula for self-inductance is mu naught n square A by L, where n is number of turns and A is area of the coil and L is length, and in this case it's height. And if you just at least have this in mind, you could just look for similar terms in the options. In the main formula that we have in mind, there is a mu naught and n square term, isn't it? So just look up for those options which have mu naught and n square term in them. Look, actually in this question, integration is employed. Whether it might be integration or differentiation, constant is constant, isn't it? Constant doesn't get affected at all. So as here n square is constant, n square must remain the same. So just look for those options which has n square term in them. So option 1 and 3 has n square as well as mu naught. So our answer must be 1 or 3. So next look up for those terms which helps us to further eliminate. So every option has 2 pi, every option has h as well as every option has mu naught. We can't use any of these to eliminate between 1 and 3. The only thing that we have to employ is ln. For the first option, it's ln b by a, and for the second option, it's ln a by b. Just take a look at what a and b are. A is the inner radius and b is the outer radius, which implies that b must be greater than a. In the first option, as it's ln b by a must obviously be greater than 1 because b is greater than a, isn't it? So ln of b by a, that is ln of something greater than 1, is always a positive value. But whereas look at the third option is ln of a by b, which implies that a by b is obviously less than 1. So ln of something less than 1 comes out to be a negative value. Look, mutual inductance is something which just depends on the dimensions of the coil, so it can be a negative value. If you aren't confident enough about it, you can just look at the formula that I have said before. In L is equal to mu naught n square A by h, which term is negative? Nothing is negative. Mu naught should be positive, n square obviously positive, area can be negative and length even can be negative, which proves that mutual inductance is a positive quantity. Based on that, as first option is coming out to be a positive value, first one is correct option in this case. This question here says that there is a chain of length 90 centimeters, of which 60 centimeters is lying on the table and is hanging over the edge of the table. So we are asked to find the work needed to be done in order to put the hanging part back onto the table. So the main purpose of me picking this question is to explain you the concept of center of mass and to tell you guys to use center of mass wherever possible. So let's see this question for instance. So this is a quite simple one actually. We just need to find mgh value. Mgh is the work done, isn't it, to put that hanging part back onto the surface. But in the mgh formula, one needs to put h as 15, not 30, because whenever a question comes up like this, whether that might be chain or rod or thread or anything of that kind, one needs to solve that problem in terms of center of mass, not in terms of whole height. Because whole mass seems to be acting at that particular point. So if we just plug in the values in mgh, m turns out to be the mass of this 30 centimeters, not a whole mass, okay? So how would we calculate that? Initially we can calculate mass per unit length of chain and then multiply it by 30 centimeters. So mass per unit length comes out to be 2 by 90, that is 1 by 45, and 1 by 40 multiplied by 30 centimeters because we need the mass for 30 centimeters. So 1 by 45 times 30 gives 2 by 3. So m comes out to be 2 by 3 and g is obviously 10 as given. And h is the height of center of mass, not the total height. Total height is, as I said earlier, total height is 30. We need not take that, but one should take it as 15. So 15 in terms of meters. So 15 by 100 gives the value of h, and that is 3 by 20. And 20 and 10 gets cancelled and the whole answer comes out to be 1 joule. So the answer is 1 joule. So whenever possible, even when you are applying tricks or solving questions related to strings and chains, don't forget to employ center of mass at all. Alright guys, so if you've loved the video, mind liking the video, which would be a great help for me, and see you in the next video again. Bye bye.